Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Empyre Issue 3. And this was pretty good because it was kind of a slower issue, so we didn't get a lot on the action front. This is pretty much looking into and seeing how the war is going and what's kind of going on with the various factions at this point. You always kind of need this issue to ascertain what's going on, whose objectives are where, and where plans are kind of going. So we start off and we see that it's pretty much focused on Reed Richards and Tony Stark. Reed pretty much giving us an update of what's going on Earth, that the Hulkling has laid down rules of engagement, but of course, during the heat of battle, the Kree and the Skrulls kind of take it into their own hands, as we see a splash of like the Kotati doing their plant control things, like going over Earth and everything. And we see that Reed is pretty much going up and talking to Tony. Tony's like, yeah, the Wi-Fi password's this, but he's like, yeah, it follows the same kind of mnemonic device that Johnny would do, except you do stuff with the numbers. Of course, he's like, wow, I'm slightly smarter than Johnny Storm. And Reed's like, wow, yeah, Tony's not in a good spot. And then we flip over and we see kind of what's been going on. Cap is pretty much leading the forces like he usually does when inside any kind of crisis. I'm like, yes, Cap. Thor, of course, is going off to search other kind of mystical means that mainly gods can pretty much get. And I'm like, all right, cool. It's nice little sights like that. And then, of course, we see that Tony's working on the problem. And by working, we see that Tony's pretty much beating himself up for what he did. And Reed's trying to get him kind of out of that. He's like, listen, Tony's blaming himself for this thing. And it's like, listen, take the hit, but keep going. You know what I mean? Recognize the mistake, try to mitigate that mistake, and try and help going forward. But he's still kind of stuck in that kind of spot of like, I shouldn't have listened to him. I should have seen it. And he's like, I was there too, and I didn't see it. All right, you're not alone in this, Tony. He's like, it's easy for you to say. Of course, he's talking about like, he usually has his family close by with the Fantastic Four thing and everything. He's like, yeah, he's kind of got a point. But it's like, come on, Tony, you are smart. You've usually got weird, wacky ass ways to do stuff. I mean, hell, you've made armors out of the craziest of fucking things. You made an ice armor to fight the devil. Yeah, you made a mistake. Go for it and stop the Kotati, man. That's how you need to do it. So we switch over and we see that the Thing is in Wakanda. He's with Shuri, and of course he's getting the kind of like linguistics lesson of what their chant means and everything. It's like hold fast kind of. It's like, oh, I thought it was more like clobbering time, as we see kind of something reminiscent from Infinity War, as the Kotati are their forces are breaking through the shields and everything, and as they're like fighting and everything. I'm like, okay, that's actually pretty cool, and it's interesting to see the Thing and Shuri interacting like that. And he's like, usually I need the universal translator, but like I agree with Shuri, you need to acquire knowledge, but so does the Thing as well. He's like, okay, cool. Tell me about this. Let me learn about this. I'm like, yeah, all right. So we're seeing the forces of Wakanda pretty much keeping a good keel on what's going on with the Kotati fighting. I was like, all right, that's kind of weird. So let's see what's going on. Of course, Koi is questioning their battle plans because with swordsmen, why are we sending in these forces? I mean, we're doing pretty well everywhere. Talking about the dead on Genosha, what's going on with like the mutants and all that, the Savage Lands and all that. It's like, oh god, well, kind of had their forces are doing pretty good damage at places. He's like, why aren't we sending in our elite people? Sort of like, well, tactically, we're testing out their weaknesses and everything to then send in our elite force. I'm like, yes, okay. And he's like, well, we also really need to go after T'Challa, like one of the most dangerous men alive. He's probably already figured out what we're going at Wakanda for. So evidently they've opened up wars on multiple fronts to kind of disguise what they're actually going after. And of course we then pop to T'Challa as he's like, yeah, they're after the Vibranium Men. And of course She-Hulk's like, why would they need metal? It's like, it's not the metal, it's the Vibranium enhanced soil. They pretty much probably want to put a Death Blossom there, which would exponentially increase its power potentially to a galactic state. And I'm like, yeah, if having vibranium weaponry and vibranium technology is really kind of good for like Wakanda. Think of what it could do to like the Kotati's magic and everything. That would be pretty disastrous. And T'Challa is smart to kind of keep that front open and understand that he really needs to protect that shit. And of course, while they're discussing this, he's discussing it with She-Hulk and Susan. Mantis shows up. She was the person that we'd seen coming into the system previously. And she's like, I'm here to pretty much talk to my son and figure out what's going on. And they're like, I don't know if you'd be able to really do that. But of course, she talks to Susan on a mother-to-mother basis. Like, you'd try to do the same thing with your son. And I understand that there will be punishment and repercussions for what is occurring. But the swordsman is the one whispering poison into his ear, so we have to figure out what's going on there. So, yes, we have Koi doing all of this, but he does not seem to be the complete mastermind behind this. We have to see what Swordsman's whole kind of game plan is. He did something to pretty much make She-Hulk less Hulk-like. And then also cut her. So we'll have to see if that any way comes into play. He has done some interesting things, so we'll have to see what his real endgame goal is. We do, because plant life taking out all pretty much animal life, yes, that seems like a pretty much understandable plan, but it would also be a good cover to some other kind of secret plan, so we'll have to see how that kind of goes. So we then switch over to the Kree Skrull ship, and they're pretty much trying to figure out what to do now, since the whole thing with Carol worked out pretty much the first time. They were pretty much going to use a Skrull sorceress to pretty much try and amplify her ability to absorb more of the energy. She's kind of like a kind of techno-hybrid kind of thing, like Doctor Strange kind of thing. And they're like, okay, but that could potentially kill Carol as a suicide mission. Johnny's like, this isn't working out. I'm not liking that. Of course, Hulkling's like, this really doesn't work out, and I'm not really liking that myself. But of course, T'Challa's like calling in, like, hey, can I use your Star Sword? I'm like, okay, let's kind of see where this goes. And Hulkling's like, hey, does your plan involve an Avenger dying? And he's like, no. He's like, cool, have fun, send it off right away. And I'm like, yeah, listen, I haven't read that much of Hulkling, but I'm really enjoying how he's pretty much, oh yeah, you pretty much made me as a figurehead? Yeah, dude, I'm the only one that can, like, mess around with this sword, man. So, what you got? It's like, and then, of course, they're berating him for his, perceived weaknesses of, of course, Carol's yelling at him. Other people are yelling at him, like, what did you do? That's really stupid. Johnny's like, no, you made the right call, and I'm with Johnny on this. But they're like, this could lead to more people dying. He's like, well, if your plan doesn't work, we lose an important asset of Captain Marvel. So does that work with your, like, cold and practical logic and all that stuff? Of course, we then have the whole issue of the Pyre being brought up, and Tantalus knows about the Pyre and everything with that system and all that the Skrull had to do to destroy it. Of course, it's the death of a son. They had a planet that pretty much copied Earth. There was like artists and all that kind of stuff, Skrull, and he was like, everything was pretty much dead, so we had to do it anyway. It's like, why would you know that? That's like important information. But of course, Tantalith is pretty much wondering if Hulkling will have this kingly fortitude to choose between destroying a doomed planet or letting the whole galaxy run to ruin. Now, I understand that people always bring up that kind of wane, but if you get into that point and you start pretty much devaluing that one thing to the point that it's inconsequential, you start running into some nasty ass scenarios to where you can pretty much justify anything, and justifying the means and all that. You have to, there is a balance there, and I think Hulkling will be able to do that, but we see that there are other forces at work, and that Captain Glory's like following Tantalus, like, you really talked very highly of Ronan, but he fought against us in this one bit. It's like, and your signature is kind of different than what I'm seeing. You Skrull, I kind of know that. And we find out that who we thought was Tantalith is actually Hulkling's grandmother, Raquel. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Hulkling's grandma. I would actually take that as a written thing. The villain is Hulkling's grandma. But she, of course, is pretty much going to the thing of wanting to have her bloodline roll the Kree in the scroll, that it would have an order imposed. Captain Glory, interestingly enough, agrees with that kind of thing, but talking about how he doesn't really seem to go that way, and that they're going to have to take the heroism out of him. Hanging around with Earth heroes too much. It's like, oh shit. So that's where the issue ends, and I'm like, okay, I liked that this really kind of set up what's going on, kind of getting our players into their respective positions, getting us pretty much down from the action that we've seen in the previous couple issues, understanding the power dynamics and seeing other people pop up into play and what they could potentially be doing. So I'm like, yes, I like that we had this kind of issue, so that way we know what's going on and where it could be kind of leading to. T'Challa's going to be trying to do something with the Star Sword. We've got our main three trying to do their own kind of thing. Hulkling will have to make some weird decisions himself, and we'll have to see how everybody else around works to those, and how Koi and Swordsman and what their overall plans are going to be doing, and how T'Challa with a Star Sword is going to have to affect that. So I can't wait to see where the next issue leads. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.